the next example of understanding in this arc came with Anotsu and Rin. So they spent a good amount of time traveling together. And it was entertaining. They they messed around. It was a bit goofy, but but one of the big things that stood out is that anytime uh, Anotsu would talk to Ibane or Hisoka, and the dirty tactics of the Itto-ryu would come up, or his past would come up, or the content of his character, where where he even told Hisoka, like, hey, look, yeah, my group is winning, and we're talented and all these things, but wouldn't you rather have a man of character? And the same thing to Ibane, like, wouldn't you rather marry her off to a man of character, so you can feel that he has a, like, his conscience kind of eats at him in a way that he no longer feels the right to even call himself good or whatever. But he tries though. He does try to be cordial to people and honest and all those things. But yeah, but when these things do happen, that he gets flashbacks to whenever the time where he slaughtered Ren's family. He, like, every single time it'd be like, man, Anotsu, how do you feel? Are you proud of this moment? What you've done. He's like, oh, well, we've done a few shady things, and then boom, you see a flashback to Rin when she was suffering, and you can kind of, like, so it's almost like, in a way, like, it's kind of hard for him to be happy or to accept the happiness in that moment because of that. Because it's almost like, I guess, in a way, since his grandfather died, he was always operating in, like, a war zone and doing things by himself, and it was just singular and just strictly his ambition. But as time went on, he began to build bonds with, let's say, Maki, and then especially in this situation with Hisoka, where everything was culminating into perfection. Like, the Itto-ryu was going to be the source school of the shogunate, so that was going to be the supreme school of all of Japan. And then on top of that, here he is with Hisoka, and everything is clicking perfectly. And this is like he just it was almost too good to be true in his head, and you can kind of see that from him. And he even says it a few times, like, man, like, it's just hard to believe all this is coming together so perfectly. But as it's coming together, he keeps flashing back to the day he took over the Mutenchi-ryu. So to me, that shows personally that he's struggling to embrace this, embrace an event where he should be happy, because he understands the things that he did to get here. But essentially, it took him realizing a certain level of peace to understand what he took from Rin, and only then could he really start feeling that guilt. This comes into play later on, while Rin and Anotsu are traveling together. So they get stuck into a cave, and while they're there, Anotsu falls asleep, and Rin sees it as a great chance to get her revenge. But obviously, Anotsu's always paying attention. He wakes up and he looks at her. He's like, "Look, that's not gonna work. You're not gonna kill me like this." So, seeing her incompetence, he kind of asks, "Hey, like, why do you even want to be a Kenshi?" He's like, "This isn't for you," basically, being sarcastic or whatever. And she's like, "Well, clearly to get revenge, on you, like to kill you, right?" That's what she tells him. Then he says, "Well, okay. What are you gonna do after you kill me? Like, let's say you succeed. What are you gonna do?" And she didn't think this one through, and she's just like, I don't know. I'm gonna rebuild the dojo. I don't know, basically. And then he says, "Well, okay, well, fine. It is whatever. Like, it is what it is. But just make sure, essentially, don't go too far with your retribution." And she's like, What do you mean?" And he says, "Look, the world that we live in today, like the pain that you're going through, the pain that I've been through, the pain that everyone's going through, this world built by our ancestors, and it's essentially a cycle of hatred, like a recycling of past grudges, because some people just would not let things go, and so he's saying, like, do what you do, but just essentially keep it healthy, like, just don't get crazy, and then even it's actually a pretty impassioned speech that he gave, and then obviously rightfully so, Rin just looks at him and she's like, you I didn't choose this. Like, you made me choose this. Like, you took everything from me. And she just balls into tears and she breaks down and just lets him know. And then he apologizes. He essentially says, look, I've clearly wronged you. Which, before moving forward, what happened in that scene is interesting, because had this happened, let's say, actually, no, it did happen. When they had their last meeting, Anotsu was merciless. Like, he didn't care. When she was screaming at him, he just tuned it out. It was just a little girl crying. Like, who cares, right? Like, this is the way the world works. Like, he had no qualms with it, no questions about it. Like, he was on his path. But for whatever reason, this time, he was much more attuned to it. So that's interesting. I feel like that shows a lot of growth in his character. That shows that at least the events that have happened between the last time they met and this has really changed him. And I think it's reaching all his goals and kind of getting to the end and just thinking, well, okay, what now? And obviously he had new ambitions that he spoke about, putting people in all over the shogunate or whatever, having his own little shadow government or whatever it is that he was intending to do. But at the end of the day, I don't believe that he ever really, like, after killing the Mutenchi-ryu, he never truly was able to take pride in that. And so now with his new experience and understanding as he is today, he looks back on it and says, wow, that was, it wasn't good. That his mentality during that time wasn't healthy, and that he begrudges anybody that would pass that on to the next generation like it was to him. And he sees that in her, and he's just trying to be nice and let her know not to do it. But after he says this apology, Rin flips out and just big boot to the face, takes him to the ground, hauls off, and screams and says, how dare you apologize? If you were sorry and you want to apologize, then you should have just never done it in the first place. And once again, what's interesting, he just lets her do it. Like, he doesn't stop her. He doesn't, like, I think the last time she tried to scrap with him, he pinned her against a tree and just tied up her hands. It's like, basically now he's treating her with kid gloves. He could easily incapacitate her or whatever, but he's letting her vent, which is once again a sign of growth. Like, it's almost like he's taking all of this. He's taking it's like he's trying to make amends for what he did. That he understands what he did was wrong. I mean, he's clearly still moving on a war path, to achieve his ambitions, but he's becoming more analytical about his actions and how his behavior is rippling through the world. So it's definitely interesting to see. And so now he's a lot more passive in the way he deals with Rin, especially. And also, in many ways, Rin comes to understand Anotsu, whereas before, Anotsu was this boogeyman that, like, all he was the man who killed her parents and nothing else. And so it was this monster that she could easily kill and just do away with. It didn't matter. She had no feelings towards the situation, right? But after spending time, there were, basically, they had jovial moments and whatever, and they're having conversations. And then as she's following him, she was there when Anotsu was talking to Ibane and Hisoka after they had committed suicide. So she's seen all that, and then she saw how he handled that. And then she was there when Anotsu was talking to Maki and pulling her out of the depths of despair, and so she was there for that. So I mean, she's like there for literally everything, and she gets a really like a more 360 image of the guy. And then on top of that, Anotsu apologizing and allowing her to vent, kind of softened, like, also helped to soften her position. That it got to a point that, especially like that cave scene was a serious turning point, because after that scene, she was more willing to help him. I think when he got really sick, she offered him a suicide pill. Obviously, he rejected it. Was made sure to save food for him if there was extra. Like, you could tell that she softened her position. And then even crazier when he got really sick. And then it was even crazy. Just like Anotsu was having flashbacks to when Ren, to that past when he would do that, and you could tell his conscience was getting at him. Now, and Ren had it in the opposite way, right? So basically, Anotsu got crazy sick, right? And then, the Shingyoto-ryu had caught up to all of them. It was like a gang of them. And then, they were trapped, they got hurt, they're about to basically kill him. Like they're dead to rights. And then right in that moment, she looks and she sees that, oh, it looks clearly unfair, and she's like, oh, you guys shouldn't be fighting him. That's not honorable. This isn't fair. You're ganging up on him. And the second she said that, she got a flashback to her own father when Anotsu and his gang of Itto-ryu did that to her father, and she hesitated, and she's like, ooh. So that lets you know, like, that's a level of understanding that's just going on. Like like they've come by spending this time together and just, you know, randomly meeting up with each other and stuff, that they've come to an understanding of each other, and that they're seeing this. Well, now instead of seeing him as a boogeyman, she sees him as just even maybe also herself, because he was also getting revenge for his grandfather. Like she was trying to get revenge for her father, and then at the same time, while she's consciously struggling with trying to get that revenge, whether or not it's the right thing to do, because, you know, she still wants to be a good person. And she sees, when she heard his conversation on the cycle of hatred and revenge and retribution passing down from generation to generation, she sees that he's also thinking that way in the way that he treats the people around him, that he generally tries to be solid, and that that she realizes and sees them both as just, you know, two individuals that through a series of unfortunate events led them into this conflicted relationship, but not necessarily seeing each other as evil anymore. Because especially she can even more relate to Anotsu, because now she's in Anotsu's position based off what happened between her and Renzo earlier in the manga, when she killed Renzo's father, or at least, you know, enlisted Manji to do so.